I've heard it many times, I've seen it many times, in asking a creative, well, why aren't you working more? They'll say they have all the tools, they have the time, but there's an obstacle that they won't overcome. And it comes down to their standards and beliefs around home decor. Believe it or not, home decor. Before we get into how that is the case, let me introduce myself. This is Gary Goodwin. I'm the founder of The Stuck Creative, and this is a place to come for tips, tools, and techniques for getting unstuck, getting started, and getting your projects done at last. Welcome. Many, maybe most people, don't have dedicated space they can set aside and permanently set up as a studio, as a music room, as a craft room, or a workshop. And that's where I think people get stuck. Too many people get too stuck with this. Obviously, the answer is get used to and accept mixing spaces. Use the kitchen table for breakfast and use the kitchen table for artwork or whatever. It's a mixture of spaces. But I meet so many people who are not willing to address the rules, address the real situation, and accept that something has to change if they want to be creative. And that change means changing things and their opinions and their standards about their own home decor. Unless we're mixing spaces, then we're not going to stretch ourselves because we're not going to take on new tools. We're not going to take on a regular daily practice. We're going to leave things put away in the closet, in the basement, in the attic. We just will not have our tools out. We will not be practicing. We'll not be challenging ourselves. And here are the reasons I normally hear about the mixing of uses. Well, things will look disorderly. If I have a mixture of things on the dining room table, beyond the dining room table, that's going to indicate that not only is that room in disorder, my house is in disorder and I'm in disorder. I can't live with that. Or it's going to be unsightly. You know, the living room looks best with a certain, decor. You bring the other stuff in, it's going to look like a workroom. That's just not acceptable. It's not going to look right. It's risky. If I bring some fluids in, if I bring in some paints, if I bring in some chemicals, bring in some tools to the kitchen table, I probably will end up wrecking the kitchen floor, the kitchen table, and who knows what else. It's just too risky. If I don't knock it over, someone else is going to knock it over. It's a hassle. It's a hassle to get stuff out, work with it, leave it out for a couple days, and then put it away. It's just too much of a hassle. I just don't like that. I don't like hassles. I just won't do this. Or it's incomplete. The best space is a space that has a place for everything and everything in its place. Or where it's all laid out so I can, grab a brush, I can grab a tube of paint, I can grab this, I can grab that. I need to have it all laid out or I just cannot do it. So it's not complete. It's not a total layout. And it's discouraging. Here I am shuffling between spaces. Should I really have to, as a creative, live that way? Who am I? What's my life been about that I have to cram all this stuff into, mix it into one space? It's just, I find it too discouraging. One thing before we continue, this is part of a longer group of things I've been discussing, which is the need for multiple workspaces, because sometimes we're not going to have our ideal space available, or we may never have an ideal workspace. So therefore, we can find, and we should find, other workplaces that we can keep working from. Sometimes we have to go mobile because our other workspaces are tied up. Sometimes we prefer to get away from our typical workspace or spaces. So to already know places that we can go to will speed up the process. We will feel, once we have this inventory of spaces we can go to, and we've gone there and tested it out, we've done it a few times or more than a few times, we'll feel as though we're basically unstoppable. You shut off one place where we can work, we pick up and go to the next, and so forth. Sometimes with a lot of the tools of our craft with us, other times with just enough to get by. So take a look at this video, which is found at thestuckcreative.com under the videos tab, or you can go to YouTube directly and find it just by searching under The Stuck Creative. Throughout the Stuck Creative, whether announced it or not, I think of approaching whatever we're talking about usually from two fronts. One is through our head and our heart. What are the inner changes, the inner qualities? What are the things we need to accept? What are the things we need to be aware of? What are the things that we need to know? That's one approach to overcoming obstacles. And usually we have to use the second one, which are the tips, tools, and techniques that work in the real world. You know, the timers, the scheduling, the way we arrange things, how we organize. Those two combined can get us out or over a lot of obstacles. Sometimes we can loosen up our resistance and we can open up our heads to new possibilities when we take a hard look. What are the rules, and what are these rules that I can't change? And then if we can acknowledge them, then we say, okay, no longer do I need to look at the rules, I need to be looking for solutions. The rules are not going to change, so the change is going to have to come somewhere else in the equation. So the rules of life: we must have space to create and produce, at least some space of some sort at some level. To be creative, we must create and produce on a regular basis. I say daily. And number 3, that means we need regularly available space. To get through this resistance or over this obstacle, we need to look again. We need to look again for possibilities. Maybe we rolled out a long time ago that we just couldn't do our craft, our creative work in our living space. We need to look again. We need to look creatively. That is, turning our creativity towards finding a creative solution. Along with this, and I don't know, probably this one comes before looking again, we need to loosen our standards. I meet a lot of people, and I know where they're coming from, they have very hard standards about their living space, and they're never, unless they loosen it up, I'm not saying dumping it, but unless they loosen it up, they'll never be able to create, do their craft work at home in their living space. And that just is not a place that we can go. So we need to get comfortable and deal with some of the frustration with a standard and then violating that standard. But there's just no other way, and if we can't get through this work, then the tips, tools, techniques, just nothing's going to happen with those. So look at your head, look at your heart. Can you loosen your standards, and can you look in a creative way where you live, and maybe you can find creative workspace. Here are a couple statements. They're actually questions that could get us thinking in new ways about using our space, about changing our standards, or finding a creative solution. One of them is how long we have things out. So we might say just for a few hours when we do have them out. So we could have them out in full or in part, and then put them away after that period of time, or put them away at the end of the day, something like that. When we use a space, it could be something we have to negotiate with others that we live with, or we have to negotiate with ourselves that we're going to have it out after dinner until bedtime, something like that. And this gets down to how we have things out, and it's how much we have out. Now, I tend to grab a lot of things and have way too much, or dream of having everything at my fingertips, even though I might not use 95% of it. So with some practice and some thought and more practice, we can start to know how much we need to pull out of whatever we're working on and leave the rest of the stuff put away. Or we also can look at how we have them out. Some people have a very organized way to have things. They may have something on a rolling cart where they can just keep everything on there. So a lot is out, but it's all tightly organized on a cart. Some people use backpacks. Some use portable painting kits. Anyway, there's a lot of inventive things. If you don't think of something on your own, take a look at places like the Container Store, or look within your field of interest and see what other people have done for portability and for storage. And there may be solutions there that will be new to you. Also, what do we do in the space? Maybe we only do the gentle things, the safe things, the things where we're not going to spill things, or we're not going to worry about other people knocking things over. And we do the more gentle things, having those things out in a mix of uses in our living space. And we save the hardcore or the dirty or the noisy or the thing that produces fumes, whatever, and save that for a very tight scheduled time, once a week or once a month or whatever, or we find a way to do it outside of our living space. Think this through. Think of the possibilities. Again, it's not all of it out or none of it is out. We can find solutions by combining various factors, some of which I have listed here. Another way of minimizing the impact of multiple use of a space is maybe there's a form of concealment that doesn't quite involve putting everything away, or doesn't quite involve having just a few things at a time. Maybe there's a way to cover things up, or put up a curtain, or put it in a portion of the room where you don't have to look at it all the time. That as you pass by that room or pass into the room, maybe you don't look into the corner behind you. So that's where you could tuck things. That would be your form of concealment. See if there are ways, little tricks that you could pull together and to use to make you more comfortable with this new way of using your space. We should ask others, what are they doing to overcome these problems? What are they doing to overcome storage problems? What are they doing to overcome noise problems, mix of home uses, or again, those broader workspaces? How do they solve this question? This should be a discussion, because we always need space, and we always need to continually look at ways of improving our workspaces wherever they might be. Keep this discussion up. Keep searching. Look on YouTube, look in printed materials, but also don't pass opportunities when you're with other people to ask them, how do they do it? I think a good way to conclude is to see someone actually doing what we've been discussing for the last few minutes. And it's probably my opportunity to belabor my point. This is an oil painter who is mixing her uses. It may or may not apply to you, but it's the spirit of what we've been talking about.
One of the things that people consistently say gets in the way of making art is not having an art space. I'd like to show you some ideas about creating a simple and functional art space you can really use at home.
Consistent light is the first, most important aspect. Go for a window with the northern light if you can. It's consistent, neutral, and does not cast any shadows. Throwing a rug on the floor immediately indicates the space, and you can splash colors on it and not worry. My brushes constantly slip off my fingers for some reason, so this carpet is already stained. So choose an old carpet you don't care about. I wouldn't recommend plastic or anything like that. Carpet looks and feels much nicer. Next thing is the easel. I recommend to buy the one on the wheels. I can easily roll it away in the corner if I need space for something else. I'm actually using a guest room, so if I have visitors, I can just roll it away somewhere else. Same goes for rolling cart. It's from IKEA. It's perfect to hold all your art materials, like brushes. Then I have solvents here, masking tapes, pigments and similar things. Next is this small table. It's a picnic table and it can be folded away. It's light and versatile, always useful for something like palette. I use this traditional wooden oil painting palette. I can place it on the table or rest it on my arm if standing while painting. The chair is from IKEA too, and it is foldable. To make everything look complete, I'm adding a white canvas. Then, of course, the paint. I use a cutlery tray so that I can keep colors separate, like earths, blues, reds, in separate compartments. Works really well. I can put it on the table or even on the floor. Sometimes I like painting standing up, with palette resting on my arm, and it looks something like that. And the last thing you need is storage for canvases, but that's another matter. Hope you found this video useful, and thanks for watching.
Okay, I think we can stop here today. Do keep in mind that there are further tips, tools, and techniques on this topic and others related to getting unstuck, to start working and keep working to get your projects done. And you're going to find that over at thestuckcreative.com. This is Gary Goodwin, founder of The Stuck Creative, and thank you for being here today, and I will see you soon.